Bam! MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I'm here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic deep dive and having a good time while doing it. This week we have a pretty interesting topic that I wanted to discuss. I woke up pretty fired up about this morning based on a couple of experiences and conversations I've had these past few days. I usually tend to gravitate towards topics that are top of mind, based on what's going on as of late. And today's topic's no different. Before I get into that, let me first remind you guys that if you're not getting my email every morning, you are messing up. You can go to the description of the video that you're watching on the platform. I'm streaming on YouTube on the Master Chim official page. I'm also streaming on 2 Facebook pages. So it's going to be in the description, but if you're listening and you are not privy to the description, you could always go to masterchimletter.com and opt into the free emails there. So all that being said, let's see what we got going on. Jesse, what's going on, brother? You're on Saxa. Good to see you, darling. As you guys are jumping on, do me a favor. I always appreciate when you guys give me a shout, say what's up. And if you are watching on YouTube, definitely, we're still playing the algorithm game. So like it and do all that stuff. Let's get into what the topic of today is. The name, Harnessing the Man Dragon. The Man Dragon. On today's email, I gave a framework of what I wanted to discuss. And we use that, as we often do, as a guide on this talk. But it started with me posing the question, what is the dragon that lives inside of us all? Defining the dragon into something, that I'll wind up building a bunch of positions on. It's important to start with the definition that we're going to be using, right? Words mean things. So when I say a dragon, what am I referring to? In my use of the term, dragon refers to the sort of projection of one's identity at the peak of his individual power. Now, I don't like using potential, saying, this individual has a lot of potential, because I think a lot of times that's rooted in a formula that isn't anchored to reality. It is, based on my calculations, there's a good chance it's possible you'll wind up being something that you're not right now. It's like, are we really saying something? So I think that when we use the word potential, we really have to just understand its limitations. Sometimes telling somebody that they have potential may even go so far as to feel like an accomplishment by the individual that you're saying it to. So when I talk about the dragon, I'm saying, what if you were to say yes to every driving, motivating force that lives inside of you? What if you were to run so hot that many of the associations, alliances that you have melted away? What if we sort of ran so hot that every weak connection we have melted away? The version of us who is in that state is what I refer to as the dragon. The dragon has no regard, makes no concessions for anybody else's weaknesses, should those weaknesses present themselves as friction, present themselves as an obstacle. It's the person who is going to be rejected by individuals who are not currently in an alliance with said dragon. It's the person who is going to be misunderstood by those who are observing him. It's the version of you that celebrates, arguably, life to the fullest. The opposite of this person is what we often see in the aquarium of society today. The opposite of the dragon is the person who is looking for an excuse to support his nihilism, is looking for an excuse to support the victimized narratives that successfully put accountability on everybody else but themselves. I don't know that the man is the opposite of the dragon, but I do know the man is the individual that we get to walk around with from day to day. So, what is the dragon that lives inside of us all? Again, there's a semantic, issue to be considered, in that I'm defining this, for my own purposes. But the dragon, by my definition, is that version of you that makes absolutely no concession for any weakness that's around you. It's the person that's 100% forward 100% of the time. The person who, doesn't necessarily, you guys may have heard the thought, experiment. What would you do? How would you act if you couldn't fail? How would you act, or what would you do if everything you tried succeeded? And then you would describe, what that version of you would be. Well, the dragon is the person that acts that way, but doesn't rely on any certainty or assurances that it's going to be successful. They don't care. To them, to the dragon, there is no other way to be. Why would I be any other way? A very, I'll give a trivial example. My subconscious just throws these out when I ask for them, so it is what you make of it. But if a guy's intimidated to ask a girl out, what if she says no? What if I get embarrassed? What if... The dragon doesn't even have that thought process. The dragon just understands forward. It's going to take what it wants, even if what it's taking is the opportunity itself. We take an opportunity. We say seize the opportunity. Well, seize and take are synonymous, right? So we take the opportunities that are put in front of us when that's the mindset of the dragon. We tend to get in the way. So when we look at the dragon, we have to understand, because it's a double-edged sword. The person who makes no concession for weakness, see, it sounds cool in theory, right? You get a lot of guys, yeah, I'm a fucking dragon, and or you get the people with the dragon tattoos and all this other fucking nonsense. You got to be careful what you wish for. The double-edged sword comes in the form of when all of your alliances are only strong alliances, it might only represent a small fraction of the ones that your entire life is constructed of at the moment. I want to be a crusher. Yeah, well, you know what? I don't know if being a crusher is going to fit into the ecosystem that you're currently living in. So we all have that dragon inside of us, but we have to understand, and I think everybody understands to some extent, that there are decisions that we make to not seize certain opportunities because of the second order effects of those decisions. Dragons burn a lot of shit down. So the next question that I posed in the email is the dragon chaos, or can it be power? Well, in TRIBALNOMICS, I talk about an individual's identity as being a sort of capsule of rituals and matter and habits and connections and thoughts and patterns that, when broken, will once again dissipate into the universe. Imagine like a cloud of smoke, and the cloud of smoke just happens to, for a moment, take the shape of an object that we can recognize. Oh, look, it formed the shape of a dog. It formed the shape of a hat. Well, for that moment, you have that shape and it's recognizable. Then it continues to move and dissipate. That's what an identity is. So is it chaos? I wouldn't say it's chaos. I would say that it's just occupying a larger, more powerful footprint than our current identity may occupy. So because it's outside the boundaries of who we understand ourselves to be, we're just used to sort of relegating that or dismissing anything outside the boundaries of who we are as chaos. And I would say, no, it's just that it's that version of you that touches a reality that very rarely do you come into contact with. It's like you got $1,000 saved, and there's $1,000 that you could invest in some sort of, opportunity, business opportunity. I don't know. I'm thinking of something. The smaller version of you might say, well, it's $1,000. I could lose that. I have obligations. This money, I could actually use it, a little bit more conservatively, not risk it. The dragon says, fuck it. Let's go. If I lose it, I lose it. I'll get more. Sometimes and I speak from experience, the best lessons come from a full embracing of the opportunity. You risk more. Yeah, sometimes you lose more, but you always learn more. You always become a little stronger. You don't want to be the person that, I talk about the undefeated paradox, right? It's like, yeah, I've never lost a fight. And then after a little bit more of a conversation, you realize he's actually never been in one. Some people think there's value in that. The dragon doesn't even consider the entire idea, the concept. The dragon doesn't care. It's going to get what it wants. It's going to do what it's going to do. So can a dragon be chaos, or can it be power? It could obviously be powerful, and it's only chaos if you see it as being something that exists outside of who you are. If you embrace who you are at that heightened level of intensity, at that elevated level of heat, then it can't be chaos because it's you. It's just that, again, at that level of intensity, there's a lot more speed. There's a lot more ground that's covered. There's a lot more movement, but there's also a lot more risk. There's a lot more uncertainty. But that's the game you're playing at that level. Next question I presented. When the man-dragon is present, which is a reflection of the other? There's that great scene in Kill Bill where Bill's talking to Beatrix B. And he talks about, the difference between Superman and the other superheroes in comics. And he says Superman is actually Kal-El's commentary on what he thinks people are, because he designs the Clark Kent persona. He could have been any version of a human. Like Clark Kent could have been any type of personality, but he chose that because he thought that was the way that he was supposed to operate. That was his commentary on people. Well, sometimes your personality is the dragon's idea of what is going to be functional. Sometimes you have the dragon and you do everything in your power to separate yourself from it. I don't know which is supposed to be better than the other. I don't know which is more functional, which is the ideal. I do know that having two versions of yourself creates offset internally, and that can't be a good thing. So there should be a marrying of these ideas. I've been in business a long time. I've run a martial arts school a long time. I've seen men pressured physically, emotionally. I've seen them deal with pain. I've seen men in a training environment do everything from lose their minds with anger and rage to become dysfunctional and closed down, crying and almost breaking. Like I've seen everything. My experiences have run the gamut of different levels of reactions to the level of intensity that comes from martial arts training. I've damn near seen it all. And what I do know is that some people are just programmed differently. Some people, they want to just take it easy. It's like, I don't need everything. I don't need to move too quickly. I just, I don't want to lose what I have. There's other people that are saying, I don't care if I lose what I have, because if I have to go through life just having this, it ain't worth living. And in my experience, a lot of these people, they show up to me with one of those positions or the other. So I would say, first off, it's like, which is a reflection of which, the man or the dragon? Who's the one that's behind the scene, presenting the other? I would say it's going to vary from individual to individual, and you need to figure out who's in control. You need to figure out, are you somebody that wants to sort of walk the middle road and avoid, making too much of a mark in your life? Or are you somebody that knows you're supposed to be doing more? You just haven't developed the balls to do something about it. You have to make that decision. I can't make that decision for you. There are a lot of things that I know when a man exposes himself to make him stronger. Accountability, tribal accountability, pressure, responsibility. I've got 4 kids. Those 4 kids are a pressure that make me a better man, because I can't sit back and just wait for somebody else to do something. I have to take care of my kids. But before I had kids, I never experienced that pressure. So I know having the obligation of having children allows me to learn more about myself, because I'm exposed to pressure that I could not have created otherwise. Sometimes when we move forward, sometimes even in the form of the damage that the dragon in us will create, it still puts us in a situation where we have the opportunity to be more. The corny people say, hey, you either win or you learn, and I've always pushed back a little bit against that. Like, no, you could win and learn also. You don't have to lose to learn. The point is, you're always learning when you're moving. Movement is mandatory. Sometimes people only move when they become the dragon. Think about those times where somebody gets so fed up that they have to do something. They have some sort of cathartic event. They have to get it out. Enough is enough. I can't take it anymore. And then they do something, usually clumsily, but they do something they should have done way before then. They had all the information to understand they were supposed to do it before. They just didn't have the fire. So they need to become the dragon momentarily to do things that they know they should have done. I say it's something that when it happens, people should contemplate that transition, should contemplate the value of transforming into that version of themselves. Ask yourself, like, why do I have to be like that in order to act like this? Why are these 2 versions of me so separate from one another? Why does Bruce Banner really need to get angry before he becomes as strong as the Hulk? What can I do to drive the overlap between these 2 personas? You guys, in a slightly different application of this concept of driving overlap, you'll hear people talk about longevity. If you do this, this is this correlates to longevity. This correlates to a longer lifespan. People who do this, their all-cause mortality is reduced by, and all these different things to live longer. But not many arguments, do those people have for living stronger. It's like, ask yourself, if you are going to be the average version of yourself for 100 years of life, but the peak, best, ideal version of yourself for 50 years, which would you choose? Nietzsche has a thought experiment, the eternal recurrence, right? Where, you ask yourself, if I were to live this life over and over again, what would I need to improve? What would I not want to experience currently? It's like, oh, I got to do this again. Do I have to? Because all these other things I got working on, like, I don't want to have to go through this again if I could choose. Well, it's like, well, why not take care of those things now? It's like 50 years of the peak version of you is always going to be more valuable than 100 years of the average, 100 years of the middle of your power, the middle of who you are. But people aren't trained to think that way. People aren't trained to have, incredible days, to maintain incredible states. I was joking with my mastermind group this morning about a conversation I was having with a, I don't know how forthcoming I'm going to be. Well, I had an individual talking about, his wife wasn't happy. And he felt that he wasn't doing well because his wife was never happy. And I said, well, at some point you just have to consider, and again, I don't want to be too clumsy with how I'm presenting this, because there's going to be more nuance to any, reflecting on it, in a conversation like this. But after sort of validating, his value as a man and as a husband and as a father, I told him, well, maybe you need to consider that your wife is just a fucking miserable person. And maybe you need to understand that it's not your job to make her happy. It's your job to be the best version of who you are. It's the best version of the approach that you're capable of to your oaths and obligations. And if you're doing the best you can and she's still not happy, for lack of a better way of putting it, that's her fucking problem. I could say, yeah, make yourself available. If she decides to recruit you to help her control her happiness, but don't respond to her requiring that you provide it. That's not your job. You can't control the subconscious connection and narrative that she's following with her life. So why would you be responsible for how it's written? No, you do your job. Some people just like being miserable. Some people like being happy. Some people are in a objectively just bad position in life, but they're still smiling. Other people have the world, at their fingertips, and they're walking around like a fucking mope. I'm somebody who believes in celebrating life. I'm somebody who believes in waking up every day, with some sort of feeling where it's like, holy shit, I get to do it again. And it sounds cliche. It sounds like some fucking Hallmark poem. And I don't mean it to sound like that. It's just like, which do you want to be? If there's ever been a point in your life where, because of some emotional state that sort of circumvented all the logical, restrictions that you give yourself, you became this crusher, this heightened state of who you are, like, why would you not want to adopt the philosophy that maximizes the time that you're in that state over the one that you might normally be in? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It must be so miserable walking through life being a bitch, being scared. And the excuses that people have to sort of validate the narrative that they're rocking. Oh, well, I never met my father. It's like, who gives a shit? I don't give a fuck. Why do you give a fuck? Yeah, but because I didn't have my father, I was just, okay. Now what? Like, who gives a fuck? You woke up today. Like, this is, the easiest fucking time in the history of mankind to be powerful as an individual. It's never been easier across the board than it is today. You think of America, right? 2025, the land of the fat, poor people. Like, what are we even talking about here? But we enjoy the attentions that being a victim gives us. We enjoy when people. My grandmother just recently passed away. I loved my grandmother. My grandmother was such an awesome person. I had a bunch of people, reach out to me and offer their condolences, and I appreciate that, and I do. I don't want it to seem otherwise, but I don't run on that. I had people close to me, say, my grandmother died at 99. Say, oh, it just happened so fast. She was fine. And then, a couple of weeks later, she was on her deathbed and, it all happened so fast. And, my position was like, what do you mean it happened fast? It took 99 years for it to happen. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's just a slightly different take on the same reality. But that's all it is, the relationship you have with what's going on. It's the story you're telling yourself. Some people like just telling stories that excuses them for not making it, excuses them for failing, excuses them for, not being 100%. And it's like the dragon doesn't care about that. The dragon doesn't think like that. The dragon says, I'm going to do what I need to do. If it doesn't work, fuck it. I'm going to do it again. And it's liberating to have a philosophy that allows you to do that, because you are damn near untouchable by those negative stories, those victimized stories. Easier said than done. I'll put that out there. Easier said than done. Sometimes things happen and we have a sort of emotional deficit that occurs, right? If this is a video game, like our health meter goes down a bunch. It was at 100 when we woke up today, and then something happens, like boom, oh, we're at 76. Like we're not always in control of how we feel and react to something that happens. But what we can control is the programming, how we think from day to day, from moment to moment. Because the event that knocks you from 100 down to a 76, you give yourself a little bit of programming, a little bit of mindset training, give yourself some time. That event appears again. Maybe it knocks you down to 96 this time. It might still do damage. We actually have clinical terms for people that none of those things damage, right? So I'm not saying that just absolutely being, unaffected by anything going on in your life is a good thing. All I'm saying is it never stops the movement. The thing about the dragon is that it creates a lot of heat. It's big, it's strong. It's got a bigger footprint than you do. A lot of heat it can create, but it could also withstand a lot of heat. Right? You're not going to burn a dragon. It's not how it works. So yeah, we're just operating at a level of intensity in our dragon persona that just exists at a larger scale than who we are day to day, the way it is now. If you've ever had a moment in your life where you felt like you didn't give a fuck about the consequences, you didn't give a fuck about failure, you didn't give a, like, I don't care, I'm just doing this, I'm going for it. It doesn't have to be some deviant application. It doesn't have to be some criminal behavior. It doesn't have to be some irresponsible, idiocy. It could just be a state where you had this confidence that you did not give doubt a seat at the table. Again, I would ask, why would you not want to have that all day long, every day of your life? I'd rather spend 50 years as a dragon than 100 years as a man. Who do we got here? Mano, what's up, brother, man? There's my brother here. My little bro. Judge Cohen, what's going on, brother, man? Good seeing you this past weekend. Tyler, what's up? Even though you look like a bot. Johnny Groove, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. Jamie, what's up? My man Magoo. I'm talking that shit. James, what's up, brother, man? James says, MC, the more a guy exposes himself to more, he must take up skills and tools for every battle space and double down on heart. Yeah, it's growth. It's the expansion of your persona. It is the bigger footprint. You're the person who takes up more space because there's more of you to engage the environment that you're trapped in. You're always looking at it as, I could be more, I could do more. Casetas, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. Corey, good to see you, brother. Yeah, and James, to what you were just saying, there's a point where, some men, I've used the analogy before of, the ladder of self-power, right? An individual is always looking to climb their ladder, always looking to become more, always looking to be capable of a little bit more, be able to withstand a little bit more, everything of value looking to increase. Well, using that ladder metaphor, there are times where a man finds himself at a rung of the ladder where he's very comfortable, and he decides to fall in love with that rung and says, you know what, this is good, I'll stay right here. That is betraying the very nature of the philosophy that got him there. It is a betrayal. Think about all the people that work 50, 30, 40, 50 years for a job and then retire and then die 6 months later because they've lost their purpose. They've betrayed themselves. Whatever we think of what they were doing for those 30, 40 years as an aside, the idea of it is they were this person. And because of some narrative, maybe because of circumstances beyond their control, but oftentimes because of this arc that society has given them in form of a narrative, like, okay, you're here, you were there, now you're here, so this is what you have to do. They just go off, and get ready to die. I just question the validity of that story. We have to become more. There's a time where, the only metric that I had was money. It's like, oh, I'm becoming more successful the more money I make. And I'm fortunate that I evolved past that. Money's still a factor, obviously. I live in the aquarium like anybody else. I'm not hunting and trapping and raising crops and living off the grid, things like, yeah, I go to the store like anybody else. So yeah, money's going to be a part of that. But then you talk about health, the health of your family, the health of your mindset in the face of adversity. And are you still growing? Are you still learning? There's so many things. There's so many factors to consider. To just consider money. It's like if you have a lot of money, it doesn't make you a great man. Just like if you don't have a lot of money, it doesn't make you a bad one. It's just one factor. It's a part of the equation, but it's just one factor. So as I get older, as I get more experience, as I have more experiences, one of the things that I learn are all the things that I wasn't aware of that are factors in the big picture. It could be something as more abstract as gratitude, which became a larger and larger component of my philosophy as I've gotten older. But it could also be something a little bit more pragmatic, like fucking sleep. Like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you moving? Right? Like physically, mentally. I've got a Fitbit, right? I track my steps every day. I work out every day. Like, I'm engaging my kids every day. I'm engaging my wife every day. I'm touching all these different points of who I am to make sure everything's staying connected. But I don't follow anybody else's blueprint. I don't tell myself I'm supposed to get a nice, secure job and don't rock the boat. Don't make too many waves. I got this job because it's got great benefits. I once had a conversation with one of my guys who was an employee at the time, and he was saying, one of the great things about my job is the benefits. And I said, I'm pretty sure, and he did not have a very, it's going to sound lazy, but I don't want to be too descriptive. There is a certain amount of anonymity I keep with my guys, but let's just say he didn't have the most masculine job. and, like office, like, fucking pencil pushing office guy. And he said, one of the great things about my job is the benefits. And I said, well, I think, my job has better benefits than yours. You should try mine. And he said, well, what do you mean the benefits of your job? Aren't you an entrepreneur? Don't you have your own business? I said, yeah. He said, well, what benefits do you have? I said, I get to be a man every day. I get to not have to, anchor my success to the moods and whims of people who are in charge of my resources. Oh yeah, the boss is in a bad mood today, or the boss, he's docking my pay, or I got written up. So like whatever, I don't even know. I don't even know how to mimic the aquariums of some of these job environments that people are in. And listen, if you're there, you're there. Like, crush where you're at by all means, but there's a point where what benefits is it that you're looking for? You have the guy that's 300 pounds, that he's saying, and he's in this job because of the health benefits. It's like, why don't you get in fucking shape? Then you don't need to spend 40, 50 hours a week in a job that's literally just an insurance policy against your inability to move your body. It just doesn't make sense. Corey says, I've seen guys retire and have fatal heart attacks 6 months later. It's a very common thing, and it makes sense. It's like, oh, can you believe, he worked all that time, retired in 6 months? And usually the sentiment that goes along with that observation is like he was just about to enjoy his life. Like, he put in all that work so he could finally live his life, and then he died. It's like, you don't fucking get it. How ungrateful we are for those 30, 40, 50 years spending time in a job that doesn't do anything for the dragon inside of us. So we learn how to build a cage around the dragon, tell it to behave itself. I've been fired from every job I had, so I guess take what I say with a grain of salt. It's just, how much of who you are you willing to concede just for the security of a job that everybody who's lesser than you or has lesser goals than you tells you need. It's like your mom or your grandmother saying, listen, you got to get a good job. It's like they love you. They're trying their best for you. But you also have to understand they don't get it. They don't get it. Man, Mike, this is great. This sums it up perfectly. Life is short. Buy the motorcycle. Right on. Oh, Mike's one of my guys, and he gets it. He gets it. You could be perfect. Next life, you could be perfect. Perfection is an abstraction. Perfection is something that we're all programmed to sort of gravitate toward. You look at one of the most significant factors of attractiveness in the face is symmetry. Right? If it's symmetrical, if it's perfectly symmetrical, that's the ideal, of the spectrum that we're tracking when it comes to attractiveness. Sure, there's reasons why we're programmed or we've evolved to think like that, genetic flaws and things of that nature. There's an evolutionary component to it, but aside from that, it's still us just pursuing perfection and abstraction. And that's not the way that life is led. There's no such thing as a perfect dragon. But there's no such thing as a weak one either. All right, guys, let's call it there. The stream of consciousness is complete. I appreciate you guys. I really do. I'm grateful for you guys hanging out with me. I'm here every week. You know that. Do me a favor, like the video, comment on the video, share the video, do all that stuff. Make sure you're getting the emails. and I will definitely be here next week. So again, I'm very grateful for you guys being here, and I will see you next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.